Possum on a half shell. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm back. That means the episode will last longer. Hey, look, we got Zilly season as the Zilisch news that was expected has been confirmed and the domino effects from that. And is Joey, I mean, look, everybody's talking about it. Is Joey Logano really the deal? We'll look into that too, coming off of a Richmond win that I wasn't predicting. And we'll look into a couple of other off track stories, including some schedule updates, and look ahead to the Granite State, New Hampshire, which was also a Penske playground in the playoffs last year. This year, it is an entree to the chase. And welcome to the show. Back with you. Voice is a little but Doug Fireball Turnbull from the traffic team with Rachel Cox Rosen and Photog Boise, 11 Alive. News here in Atlanta. Also, your Atlanta Journal-Constitution gridlock guy. I actually have some material. I interviewed these guys, the Gregory brothers, that have done some really viral and popular songs before that I didn't know. He just did a song about Peachtree Street. That's up on my YouTube channel, which is kind of adjacent to this one. This is the 5 to Go YouTube page where you can find the show, 5 to Go podcast, and but Doug Turnbull ATL, you can find that. But welcome to the show. That's my traffic brain talking. Let's get to the racing brain here. I'm happy to be part of the announcing team at Performance Racing Network, who will be out in full force at the 1 mile semi-flat track of New Hampshire, and we'll see how that profiles. And joining me on the line here, because I always open up talking too much, these guys' shoulders are sore from carrying my slack last week. I just needed a day, okay? I needed that hour back on my schedule. These guys help me out and make this show great. First off, it's our Roving Racing Journo, our UNG alum, and you can never have too many jobs. Hashtag hire Devin Kupka, ladies and gentlemen. And he gets so much great content on the 5 to Go podcast Facebook page and YouTube page of the track. DK, how we doing?
I am doing well, just in the middle of this odd work stretch that we got going on, but we're ready to talk some NASCAR today.
All right. Now, since you are a culinary artist at Culver's and Cumming, all the C's, I want to ask you about this. I'm drinking lemon zinger tea to kind of help my voice right here. Now, sometimes you've heard of this concoction where you might put a little lemon and you might put some honey and something to kind of, get the pipes going. There is a concoction that includes cayenne pepper. All right? You do kind of like you do a shot of that. You don't really make it your whole drink. I just decided, hey, man, I'm batching it up. Momo's not back until Sunday. I promise we'll get to you, Dan, in just a second. I just use hot honey in here. It's already got the pepper in it, man. Hot honey lemon zinger tea. Respond right here. Devin?
Just like your wings?
Just like my wings, player. That's right. Although I want my wings burning hot. All right? I want my wings burning hot, so I burn my mouth when I drink out of the toilet afterwards. Look, what do you think about the hot honey tea, though? Yay or nay?
I don't know. I don't really do the tea that much, honestly.
That's fair. That's fair. Hot honey Budweiser?
I don't know. Hey, if they made it, I'd probably drink it.
They've already got
Just
pumpkin
how,
beer.
They're screwing us out of the Beechwood Reserve Budweiser that's only going to be available in 3 states and none of them anywhere remotely close to here. So,
Beechwood Reserve. Man, come on, guys. Come on, bud. Proud to be your bud.
Hook me up, guys. I'm free advertisement for you.
Respond right. I've got a Bill Elliott Budweiser cardboard cutout behind this door over here. That's,
I'm drinking 150 Budweisers this year for the 150th anniversary for Budweiser.
Oh, so you don't like America? Come on, plus 100, Dev. Step it up.
I'm at like 125 for the year.
Holy cow.
I'm almost there. Thinking about maybe I need to do a get-together for when I hit Budweiser number 150.
Our plans a couple of Sundays ago did not come together as I didn't have a ton of time. We were going to watch the race together. Dan unfortunately had a plane crash in his backyard right there at the Elliott Field, and thankfully the people walked away from that. Didn't perish in that at least. But so I'm thinking we need to make this a 5 to go thing. Even, what do you think, Dev?
What do you mean?
The 150.
Make the Budweiser 155 to go?
Well, have you had 2 Budweisers before we got on the air, Dev? Come on, man.
No. I've been because I have a trip for Nashville next month that I'm gonna go see the Jets and Titans play.
Oh gosh.
And I'm trying not to hit 150 before that. I'm trying to save that for afterwards, after Nashville. So.
Okay. You're trying to save it for after. That's good. You'll be backfilling with other beers.
There's a little bit more pacing going on right now.
It's about 7 or 8 years old, but here's my big boy Budweiser can that they sold for a while. Big boy Outcast.
Center it a little bit more.
Center it there.
Oh
there we go.
Gosh.
Yes, isn't that
there
gold?
We go.
ATL original. It says.
I need to pull out my Daytona 500 Busch Lights that I have.
Come on. Come on, that's how you get around at night. Turn on your bush lights. Let's
And Dan,
go.
where's your Bud Light can? Now that we're talking about beer.
My Bud Light can is safely in the shelf in there for display, and I was going to tell Doug that he needs to do the old remedy that a lot of the people around here used up until I was a young kid, and that is moonshine, crushed up peppermint, and honey.
Why not? Actually,
And that usually knocks the throat deal out. Now the rest of it, but it does soothe the throat.
and it gets rid of the brain deal, that pesky brain deal too. That's the.
No, I'm not talking about a fifth of the
just playing.
stuff. I'm just talking about a
I know.
small
I'm
shot
just playing.
of the elixir.
Those pesky brain cells. Hey, but we also have by the way, our home remedy expert, our master maker of speed, making those transmissions make those engines purr. I guess how you could look at that. A 1988 Cup Series championship mechanic, 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee. We're honored to have Dan Elliott in our presence again. And although we already opened the floor for you, Dan, it took us 7 minutes.
Part of the
What?
aircraft salvage crew.
Yeah, Devin pointed that out last week. But y'all check out last week's show. Some really good discussions, including a couple of mentions about the aircraft salvage there. That's all.
Yeah.
5 to go. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and GoPRN.com. All right. Let's get into it this week. Joey Logano conquers Richmond. By the time you're listening to this, you'll have known that and forgotten about it, probably, by the time you listen to this. But he's busted out. What's his 2 of the last 4 races, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. Joey Logano, who took North Wilkesboro. Then you had Indian, Iowa in between. And then he does the same at Richmond, which they profile similarly. They're not the same track at all, but they profile similarly. Richmond, 0.7 mile track. Then I go to fractions for North Wilkesboro, which is about, I believe, 5/8 of a mile. And he takes the victory there in the double deuce. And suddenly, and this is the part that I think it's easy for it to be misleading. But old Joe, sliced bread, was 20th in points at Sonoma and is now 9th in the standings, which shows how hot they've been, but also, Dan Elliott, how close the standings are. Actually, I want to get that to Devin first because, Devin, you and I both were predisposed Saturday night to watch the race live. You got to listen to some of it, catch up with things afterwards. Your impression, before we get to Dan's nuts and bolts from Richmond, your impression of, well, Logano.
Yeah, I think, and this is what I was thinking about, while working on Saturday night is, man, you can't count Logano out in the second half of the years. And I don't even think about the even year Logano thing and all that.
Yeah,
a lot of people like to bring that up. But how good is not only Team Penske, but not Ryan Blaney, but Joey Logano in the second half of these seasons? Because really, if you look at these championships over the last couple of years in 22 and 24, I mean, those were really won in the second half of the year. You remember Echo Park Speedway winning that race to open up the playoffs a few years ago, and then him winning at Vegas a few years prior to that, really opening up the books for that second half run. And I think it goes into their favor that this is a second half team, because I look at it this way. When was the last time Joey Logano got off to a really good start to begin a Cup Series season? You might have to go back to like 2017, one of the last times he won at Richmond Raceway, which ended up being encumbered back when those used to be a thing.
And that was a crap season. He missed the playoffs that year because it was an encumbered win because they had a legality issue.
I have his stats pulled up for the 2017 season. 6th place at Daytona, 6th at Atlanta, Las Vegas 4th, 31st at Phoenix, 5th at Fontana, 4th at Martinsville, 3rd at Texas, 5th at Bristol, and then he won at Richmond, but then that win got encumbered, and if you remembered, all went downhill after they encumbered that win. Because then you have a 32nd, 37th, 21st, 25th, and the results the bad results keep going on. But just think about that, right? 2017, he doesn't really get off to hot starts.
One thing he said on the Dale Jr. Download interview, and I encourage y'all to go listen to that whole episode, right after finishing hours, okay? But go listen to that whole episode because there's so much conjecture about Connor Zilisch and about several different big issues there. But one thing that Joey Logano said is they were going to the track and they kept trying stuff and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't sticking. And then suddenly they started going and it started clicking. And he knows more than that. He's not going to tell us exactly what that is, but that's got to be so telling to your confidence. And so what he said in that show, before we get to you, Dan, about Richmond, what he said in that show is when you start having runs like they were on this long, dry spell, not just not winning, but, 20th in points halfway through the season, right? You start going, okay, is it me? And Joey Logano seems to be of the mental fortitude enough to not let the "was it me" question derail him. Some people it does. All right. And it's hard to quantify, but some people it does. So Logano, mental steel trap. He hasn't given up on Paul Wolf as crew chief or his race team or the engineers or anybody. And now he's running very similarly to Ryan Blaney, who has, despite the downturn at Ford, gone well. One more question quickly for you, Dev, and then we'll get to Dan's Richmond rundown. Okay, I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse. I'm still a believer that really the top half of the chase, and certainly the stats say 6 and above. I don't want to draw some arbitrary line. The top half of the chase, which he's right on the cusp of, are the ones that are just the best teams that have the most serious shot. So as we speak now, I'm not trying to predict, okay, just as we speak right now, Devin, is Joey Logano a dark horse to win the title? Is he an outside favorite, or is he in the thick?
You know what I'm going to say about this? What's going to happen in 2 weeks? Points are going to get reset. Guess what? Hamlin's race lead evaporates.
He's 115 ahead of Ryan Blaney.
Will be a one-race lead. That's going to be the difference between 1st and 16th, right?
Yeah.
So if Logano...
Well, 100 points, which you can get 76, I think it is, in a race. So yeah.
So, but you think about that, right? So things are going to tighten up all of a sudden. So now it's, anything could happen here. And if Logano, not saying he needs to win a race in the first few races of the chase, but if he performs really well in those first 3 races, jumps up a couple of positions in the standings, I think he's got a real shot. Let's take a look at what we got at later in the chase, right? We have Homestead, which is he's won at, which is where
Season
we're
finale.
ending the season this year. Martinsville, Team Penske's had a good track record there over the past couple of years, especially in that fall race. And you also got Vegas
Kansas
in the mix, Talladega, who the Fords run qualify really well at, but they have won there. Austin Cindric won there in the spring last year. And then you also have Vegas too, who the Fords are good at too. So,
yeah,
he, as long as he gets off to a good start in the chase, doesn't do something that Josh Berry did last year, I think he's got a shot.
That's correct. Yeah, Josh Berry's been a little bit of a resurgent run lately. We'll look at the top 10 of the race in just a moment. Dan, that was the big story out of Richmond. Logano did it again, man. But what'd you think about the race overall? It seemed like people were mixed on it. The highlights I saw, Dan, it looked good enough. I know Richmond doesn't do what it did 20 years ago, but what'd you think flag to flag?
I thought it was probably, to me, a solid 6. It really... The fact that you basically had 3 or 4 cars that from the get-go looked like the ones that you were going to think were favored throughout the rest of the evening, how it was going to turn out. And that being Blaney, Briscoe, and Logano, those seem to be the one, because Ty Gibbs, I thought Ty would run good there and probably would have, but got the deal on pit road. Speeding penalty, and that pretty much relegated them back, which they were never able to recover from. So
it was definitely hard to recover from things there unless you change your pit strategy.
Yeah, but the 3 contenders that I call really contenders on the deal, they were able to overcome smaller issues. Don't know if anything big would have happened, what it would have been like, or how it would have changed it. But I felt like from the onset that one of those 3 cars was going to be the eventual winner, with the long shot being given to Hamlin, because Hamlin, usually his track record there and the fact that he likes to run good there is just one of the things that kind of throw in the mix. Not saying it was going to, but that was the wild card. And given the rest of the field, we're going to run about how they did, with keeping in mind that as long as you didn't get run over, or the penalties on pit road or something didn't take you out for the rest of the evening or relegate you to a bad finish. Josh was running good, and he got in that 4 wide mix there for just a split second. and messed up his rhythm, and he wasn't really able to recover from that one. So you saw how that went, and I think that was the way it was for several drivers that were in good position, but short of wrecking, they were able to save the cars and be able to race on, but it still took away their momentum as far as having a really, really good finish. But that was Richmond, and really the cars that finished well at Richmond didn't surprise me any. And as I said before, the pendulum is beginning to swing back the other way, because there you had 4 of Hendrick's cars in the top 10. So you see now how it's swinging, because Ford is coming back, Chevrolet is showing signs, and Toyota is beginning to waver a little or falter a little, whatever you want to say. But it's nobody's fault and nobody to blame for that. It's just racing, and it is the give and take on any given weekend.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, with Toyotas, there is some conjecture, before we go through the top 10, there is some conjecture that when NASCAR made a rule about basically some pieces around the front splitter, that teams were having it change shape through the weekend, where it would get through inspection and then it would slowly change shape and become more like a banana. That's what Dale Jr. talked about, okay? And, Joey Logano, I think, talked a little bit about it after the race, too, that NASCAR cracked down on some advantage that some unnamed teams have, but probably the Toyotas, or some of the Toyotas, since they're running so well, that all you need is that little edge when all the cars are basically the same.
Yeah,
all right.
I look
So
at it this way, Doug. If there's not a fine, if NASCAR doesn't come out and there isn't a fine, somebody goes to R&D Center and something gets done, then we're not talking about much. Because please keep in mind, for everybody listening, everybody loves to play these head games and get all this stuff started a lot of the times. There's truth in some of this stuff, but it only hides what everybody else is trying to get away with.
Oh, that's a good point. Good point. Well, the Fords at least seem to be roared back, and Chase Briscoe has really come to life too. And suddenly, Mitchell, Indiana's Chase Briscoe 5th in points. Remember how dreadful a start he got off to this season, and he's clawed his way back and is in a really good spot there. And is, ahead of Christopher Bell in the standings, ahead of Chase Elliott, and honestly, he's only about 80 points or so, just under 80 points behind Tyler Reddick, who is 4th in the standings, and I think had a decent result there on Saturday night. So let's look at it. All right, Reddick just finished at 11th place, by the way. Joey Logano won, and he led 95 laps, very respectably. This wasn't a steal him kind of win. And we've seen him run well there over the last couple of years. Think of the Austin Dillon win 2 years ago. By the way, he had issues on pit road. That took him really out of contention early, but he also didn't seem as dialed in as he was the last 2 years. Driver number 3. Chase Briscoe led the most laps easily on the night, 171 to Logano's 95. It was second. Logano passed him right before the last pit sequence, then held his ground even as Briscoe was closing in. Now, there were a couple of surprises in the top 10. Well, there was Austin Cindric, who struggled in Iowa, looked like he was very vulnerable, and he finished 3rd. No laps led, but a quiet march to the front after starting 23rd. Denny Hamlin finished 4th. Chase Elliott needed a rebound. He was 5th. We talked about those Hendrick cars. Now we got to stop with the 6th place finisher, Devin. Kyle Larson. The big story of his Saturday night was not turning his luck around a little bit in the Cup Series and squeaking out a 6th place finish after starting 30th. It was the big story of Kyle Larson Saturday night.
Oh, yeah. It was him being able to race in the Knoxville, the Nationals over there in Knoxville, Iowa. And I thought the interesting thing was, so on MRN on Saturday night, they were talking about maybe around 20 laps to go. There are contingency plans in place for Kyle Larson to be able to race the Knoxville Nationals that night, which had gotten super postponed, and they try to run it on the same night, and sometimes it'll go super late into the night. And I don't think that race ended until like 3 in the morning or whatever. But anyways, so you got to think about it, right? A plane ride from Richmond, Virginia to Knoxville, Iowa is about 2 hours, right? So you got to imagine, okay, the race ended, I want to say like 10:08.
Yeah.
And the green flag was at like 1 a.m. Yes, that's like a 3-hour buffer period, but you got to realize race traffic. 2, you got to finish up whatever you got going on at the race, even once the race is over.
Well, he didn't. He jumped straight out of the car and got an escort to the everything.
But even then, though, you still have to deal with the traffic around in that area, unless you got a police escort to the
He definitely had help in
the
Iowa.
airport.
He definitely had help in Iowa coming from to the racetrack at Iowa, Knoxville. But from what I heard, again, I didn't.
But would it be worthy of a police escort? This isn't doing like the 600 or anything like that.
I'm just saying that he got one. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I actually don't like police escorts for sporting
So
events.
we got a police escort, which then
Yeah.
sped up the process, because even then that probably takes about half an hour from the minute you jump out of your race car
Yeah.
to the airport. So add that in, that's 2 hours. Then also you got to land, take off.
Yeah.
And then, that adds all into it. So it was a miracle that he was able to do it, because when I first heard the report, I'm like, there's no way he's going to be, like, he'll get there in time to see racing, but I don't know if he'll be in the race. But
Yeah.
lo and behold, he was in there and picked up his first major win since he won the championship last year in the Cup Series last year.
Yeah, and I think he's won some other races, but certainly a race of that ilk there are not many of. Yeah, so and he started on the pole. That's the thing, is they were set to start on the pole, and what they were going to do, from what I understand, is put a crew member in or somebody that could competently fire up the race car and get it going, and then just start and park if Larson didn't make it. And thankfully he did. And what I was impressed by, and Dan, any place you want to weigh in here, is much like Hendrick Motorsports had this detailed plan to get Larson to and from all the different Indianapolis events, including the big races. They put this together to make sure he was going to get there, right? And Cliff Daniels gets on the radio and says, "Hey, we're working on this for you." And, you can say what you want about Hendrick and all the resources and all the things, but Dan, I love that an employer is supporting an employee's chance to grow a little bit and not be stuck in a box. And I don't think at all, Dan, this is my opinion, I'd love to hear yours, that this is at Hendrick's detriment to have Kyle Larson more engaged, as long as he isn't getting hurt in that sprint car, or rather, that was a sprint car, a midget race, But he didn't get hurt, I think that having your driver that engaged, that was part of the reason he signed there, right?
Absolutely, because the whole key to the thing is to anything that he can do to support his driver in other series, like you say, as long as they don't get hurt, as long as everything is, which they want to do this regardless. So shows how talented he is in other series of driving as well. But just goes to show it's racing, support racing, and I just wish that some other people would help I'm not going to say the less fortunate, but people that couldn't afford to put this together. I wish that tracks and people and resources were done to help them as well, because it just seems like we favor, because of the money, we favor a few people and other people get left out. And my heart goes to the other people that try to do not this similar same thing, because obviously they're prepared to do that, but other drivers that may have missed the race in Iowa just because they didn't have the funds to get the truck there, or couldn't afford to put a motor in their car or do the things they needed to do. I just wish the resources were there to help other people as well.
Well, and there were apparently, if you got to think, if you're somebody that missed the A main and you had Larson's car sitting up front, and you didn't know if he was going to be at the race, and you just missed the A main, you got to be upset about that, right? So, but it's great, and that it happened and it worked out, and it unites the two worlds. Even though I personally, I don't have the dirt racing subscriptions to watch all this stuff, but I woke up the next morning only learning about all of that. I was at church camp with my new sixth graders all weekend, so I didn't have time. But cool stuff from Larson there. He was sixth of the race. Let me round out the top 10. Christopher Bell, seventh. Josh Berry, he's suddenly, I think that's 3 top 10s in a row. He was 8th. 9th goes to William Byron, another quiet night, but solid. And there's another Hendrick car, the 4th one in the top 10, Alex Bowman, who needed a good run to dust some things off. Point standings-wise, Hamlin very short at the top of these things with a 115-point lead over Ryan Blaney. Blaney has only a 12-point gap back to Ty Gibbs. They swapped spots again after Dan mentioned, I think it was Dan that mentioned the aforementioned pit road issues that the number 54 team of Gibbs had. And then Tyler Reddick is 9 points, I think it is. Yeah, 9 points ahead. No, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong points. Tyler Reddick has a healthy margin back, over 100 points back to Chase Briscoe. Okay, so they, the top 4, they may not be settled amongst themselves, but you don't have a Briscoe, Chase Elliott, or Christopher Bell who are tied for 6th in the standings that are really going to Hall going to fourth. Carson Hocevar lost more ground. He's lost another 3 spots back to 11th. He was just fifth a couple weeks ago. Missed a shift, blew an engine. And then at the back of the bubble there, Austin Cindric ran, got stage points, and suddenly has a 57-point gap back to the cut line, Ryan Preece. How about that? Shane Van Gisbergen, 50 points back to Ryan Preece at 17th. And then just 13 points behind Preece is Ross Chastain. There are also outside chances for Keselowski and Eric Jones. Devin, real quick, do you see any of these guys, short of having a lot of help, I guess, making their way up over Van Gisbergen or Cindric?
There might be a chance maybe for Ryan Preece to maybe jump ahead, or maybe Chastain. I think it's a little tough with this race weekend upcoming with New Hampshire, but anything could happen at Daytona. So it's a matter of we'll see. And I think really you're going to have to wait more for Daytona than I would say New Hampshire if we're going to see a jump.
Yeah.
But hey,
yeah.
New Hampshire might go in Ryan Preece's favor because he's, good at these short tracks.
Yeah, no, it is, but he wasn't great last year, right? I mean, it's his home track. He likes these tracks, but he's frankly been a little disappointing on those tracks. Comparison to what the expectations are. And RFK has just seen, despite Buescher being solid there in the points, just been a little off. RFK's been a little off with the Fords deal, and they're not running as well as the other Fords. Even Buescher was 21st at Richmond. I wouldn't have called that, too. All right, now, Caden Honeycutt dominated. I don't even want to talk all long about it. Dominated for his second career win to get the Truck Series race win at Richmond, which got delayed until Saturday early afternoon because of rain and power outage, I heard, at the TV compound and some other things that really made for a mess out there. And their playoffs, or rather Chase, this is their last race this weekend. This is the cutoff race. So looking at the Truck Series standings, they have 10 drivers that compete in theirs, and I got to click over to Trucks. Lane Riggs, 61-point lead over Honeycutt, and then it's another 89 points back to Chandler Smith at third. Looking at the cutoff, 20-point gap from Tyler Ankrum, who has struggled this year, frankly, over Stuart Friesen. Jake Garcia is 1 point behind Friesen. Brendan Queen is 26 points and 13th behind that. So it doesn't, again, one race could change everything, but it doesn't look like there's as much drama. But all it takes is one swing of the points in stage one, and Ankrum could be out and Friesen could be in. So we'll see. It doesn't really feel like, guys, that there are 10 chase-worthy truck drivers. And I heard somebody else point this out. In 2016 was the first year that any kind of playoff format was introduced in the then Xfinity Series and the then Camping World Truck Series, all right? They have never had a multi-race, just reset the points and go for it type situation. A chase. They've never had a chase. They've had a playoff with rounds and eliminations. And I'm really interested to see when Lane Riggs gets most of his points lead chopped off and Honeycutt gets a second chance and Chandler Smith and Christian Eckes, the top 4 points and the 4 most consistent drivers in that series. And then the same with Allgaier and his big lead in O'Reilly. I'm interested to see how some of these younger drivers could piece together a full body of work, Dan. They haven't done it before. I mean, right?
We're in uncharted territory in a lot of things. And I was sitting here thinking about, I wasn't daydreaming, I was sitting here thinking about how this has all changed in my lifetime and what we keep doing, because basically we could come in here and say for 2028, we're going to have 2 resets or 3 resets during the year and do a completely different deal, or we could do no resets, or we could do 6 stages, or we could do a mid-race break where you've got a intermission. You've just got so many ways this could go, and I'm at the point now to where that I don't know that it really matters. I've always said that the cream always rises to the top, and with the fact that we don't know rules-wise what is coming through the pipe for the rest of the year. The races, as Devin alluded to a minute ago, is the gains you make at New Hampshire could definitely swing the other way for the race at Daytona. So you have no idea what's going to take place, and then comes the reset and game on. you're into another deal that you've reset, and now how is it going to be for the second part of the season? And do you have does the team, did you like Logano? I think it was him that talked about after the race, I hope we don't peak too soon. And there is what the deal becomes, is worrying about the fact that you play all your aces here and you've still got 10, 12 races to go. So you've got a lot of racing left to go. And,
and so for the Truck Series, by the way, 7 races is their chase format. They have 3 weeks off, 3 weekends off between New Hampshire and when they fire up again at, where's theirs begin? At Bristol.
But the thing for me is, Doug,
they go
the fact
almost
that
2 months.
there are racetracks in these last races that a lot of drivers may dislike a majority of the racetracks they go to for these last races, and you've got a few drivers that love every one of them, and especially Homestead and a few other places that several drivers do extremely well at. So it's luck of the draw now. It really is luck of the draw.
It definitely gets more luck driven for sure. 9 races are in the O'Reilly Series chase. They very much mirror the Cup Series there, except for an off week on the last weekend of September between Bristol and Las Vegas. There are no more one-off like truck only or O'Reilly only races. They now match up with the Cup Series just with some off weeks mixed in. And Devin, you had something to say on Dan's comment there before we move on to Zilly season.
One thing I wanted to say, and this goes back to the Cup Series chase line. Realistically, after New Hampshire, you're probably only going to have 2 drivers below the cut line that are going to be eligible. Right now, that'd be Ryan Preece and Ross Chastain, and maybe Brad Keselowski. And if Eric Jones have a really good race, if they can get into the 17th or 18th position, and maybe 19th is still available to jump into the chase. Really, a lot of drivers are probably going to be getting eliminated this weekend, probably up to at least 20th, probably 19th. So it's really only going to be 2 after this weekend.
Yeah, and all of this talk, Dale Jr. talked about this some. He's not the only thing I listened to, but he just had to cover a lot of ground. It doesn't even make sense in the future when we get a new TV deal. Look way ahead. How many drivers do we really need in the playoffs? We're not going to talk about that today. All right, but when you think about if Ryan Preece squeaks in, is there a point to the chase if you can win? If you're not thought to be able to win? The championship. All right. And my answer to that would be, well, March Madness, there are all sorts of seeds that are fun stories for the first couple of rounds. Doesn't really, I know we don't have rounds anymore, but the first couple of races, oh man, Priest got up to 12 points. Oh God, you never know, right? So I don't know that I'm as offended by there being 16 as some people are, but I understand that argument too. All right. So enough of that. Let's turn the page. Cause then what was that? God, what was it? Was that only yesterday? Was that Tuesday when the Zilisch news came out? Okay, yeah, Devin's done, yes. Okay. So the news that Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic broke first, and people kind of started nodding their heads. That got said is that Connor Zilisch indeed will replace Alex Bowman, not next year, but in 2028 in car 48, with Allies still remaining as an anchor partner on that. We've dissected that a lot when that became thought of. So let's get to Devin, who sat in the whole press conference.
You gotta give me my credit too.
Yeah. Oh, come on, flex, bro.
March 20th, 2026.
You did.
Hey, tomorrow's news today. 5 to Go podcast had it first. Connor Zilisch to HMS.
And I thought there was an chance about it. I haven't gone back and watched the clip. You posted it on your socials, right? Devin.Kupka Instagram, Devin_Kupka on X. You put it on your socials. I thought it was a possibility, but I kind of thought at that point, man, Trackhouse ain't gonna let that happen. Well, they done let it happen, all right? And the Hendrick consortium of Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon, Devin, you were watching it. There's a very friendly, just chill press conference. All right, a lot of people that were in. They were in a room. It was a teleconference. I don't think there were any reporters in the room. Right? It seemed like it was very Zoom teleconference based, but they were all in a presentation room together. And basically, they said they got the blessing of Justin Marks once Connor Zilisch they knew was looking around. So, Dev, you asked a question that I think to me, even if it didn't get asked first, was probably on a lot of people's minds.
Yes, and I actually have the clip right here.
Respond right here. Devin has the clip. Here we go.
I do. Here we go.
Yes, I was curious if y'all are able to give a timetable to this, but when did conversations begin with bringing Connor Zilisch to the number 48?
I don't remember exactly the dates, but it was around the spring. I mean, Connor, you might be able to add to when you.
Yeah, I mean, it was earlier this year at some point. It certainly when I was able to go out and talk to teams. Hendrick was obviously one of the teams that was made aware of my situation, and quickly after that, they wanted to find out what Alex wanted to do first and respect his decision, and that kind of teed the ball up, and from there we worked and got this deal put together.
Man, great find, Devin. A great question, honestly, because this is months before Alex Bowman announced his news, although we just didn't see him without going on a crazy run or feeling a lot better coming back. So what was you sent us some bullet points of what you thought about this press conference, Devin. And I mean, I don't think there were bombshells in there personally, but what were your takeaways? What should people be impressed by?
Well, I would say the number one takeaway from the press conference that I got was that Connor Zilisch was Hendrick Motorsports' number one option through and through. And because that's the guy they wanted in the 48 car to replace Alex Bowman. Conversations obviously look like they began in the springtime, maybe around the time, hey, we brought it up here on 5 to Go.
Yeah.
But
that's really what started it. They were listening to us and they're like, I hadn't even thought about that Zilisch character.
Yeah. Hey, credit 5 to Go podcast. But anyways,
right
a bit in all seriousness though, number one candidate through and through, and the fact that I don't know about the early season results. Zilisch hasn't been great really the whole season, but even then, I think that's a little early to react and say, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be at Trackhouse. But I think they see the talent that they saw in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series and in other motorsports series as well, and they saw that and they said, all right, let's see if we can find a way to get him on our team. And maybe Zilisch was already looking in the spring on moving on from Trackhouse Racing. Maybe Trackhouse doesn't have a future after 2027. Who knows? All the driver contracts are up at least after the end of next season.
That was some conjecture right there. Okay, the team doesn't have a future after this season just because driver contracts are up?
But, I mean, you have them all expiring at the same time.
Yeah.
But we can talk more about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was already looking and then HMS was like, all right, okay, he's free after this year. They talked to Justin Marks. Then they also talked to Alex Bowman to see what his plans are. It ends up lining up perfectly. Alex Bowman gets a retirement season. And then, bam, all of a sudden, now Zilisch driving the number 48 in 2028. And then a few other notes that I have from the press conference. The sponsorship deal, I thought Red Bull would probably have a chance of coming over, potentially aligning, very strong sponsor, go well with the Hendrick brand. But they have a energy drink partner at Hendrick Motorsports already called Form Energy. Probably,
Right.
I don't know if they'll stick around or not, but we'll see. But it seems like Allies is going to be the full season sponsor for Connor Zilisch starting in 2028. So we'll see what happens with that.
Hey, one thing, look, anything could change. Chase Elliott also has a big Coca-Cola sponsorship, and they're tied in with Monster Energy, although that's never on his cars. Dan remembers, I had forgotten this till I was at the Hall of Fame and saw a picture. There was like 2 seasons that Chase Elliott was a Red Bull driver, not as the every race sponsor, but in certain races that he was a Red Bull driver. I forgot about that. Really, before he went to Hendrick, I think, or right around that same time. So I don't know. That really means very little. All right, so Dan, this is like the Dodgers going out and getting Shohei. All right, except Shohei Ohtani's a proven prospect. Zilisch, still hasn't done much of the Cup Series, but we very much believe he will. Any other take? We kind of beat this dead horse as soon as it came out, but I mean, any feelings about this now that we know for sure? And if you were Justin Marks, Dan, you've been in management of race teams and, of course, at Gresham Motorsports Park. I mean, what do you do?
What do you do? Let me
There, answer that easy question.
Yep, let me ponder my mind here for just a second, because I'm Dale Jr. and I got no charters. I'm Justin Marks. I'm going to end up with how many charters?
Well, he's got 3 right now. Yeah.
Okay, and one of my drivers just went to Hendrick. Can I connect the dots on that?
Okay.
Okay.
Connect them out loud. I'm tracking with you. Connect them out loud.
Okay, well, probably about 2028, we're going to get the news that Dale Jr. has acquired some charters, and he's going to come in and run Cup, and Trackhouse would be a major player, and all the cars and motors would be supplied by Hendrick.
You know, that's interesting. Dale Jr. talked about the subject in depth and even said, hey, is this an opportunity for Justin to downsize to 2 teams and lease out the 3rd charter for a couple years, you know, build up some reserves, groom a primary sponsor, and, you know, go out and get that next driver, too. Jr. said that on his show just as conjecture again, but you never know. Is he actually saying something that's really happening, right?
Yeah,
you don't know.
Yeah, just conjecture.
Well,
how
I mean,
foolish
technically
is
it's
this, that all of
conjecture.
this-
Right? You know?
How special would this be if this just magically happened?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Show me the money. Respond right here.
Show me the money, follow the money trail.
You know, I don't know that I love that. Trackhouse grew into this team that's, you know, maybe not a powerhouse, but grew into a very solid team. Justin Marks, you know, buying Ganassi Racing in year 2 and all this stuff. And just because they've had a couple of bad years, suddenly it's like, oh, all your drivers are leaving, it's over with. It's like, God, how flimsy is this? One thing that changed around the same time that Pitbull exited the ownership group, private equity came in. But to me, that wouldn't necessarily make the team on shakier ground. That would give them more capital to be able to build up. I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
but
I'm not speaking bad stuff into existence right now. I want Trackhouse around and would love for them to thrive and compete with Hendrick. But go ahead, Devin.
But if you have outside investors, they're going to want to see results.
But you could get results without finishing great on the racetrack if you have the right sponsors and finish well and all that stuff. That's the thing. That's the the dirty little secret about all of this is if you hold a Cup Series charter, Rick Ware, and I'm not picking on him, Rick Ware, Legacy's going to have a 3rd one next year from Rick Ware, by the way. You know, look what Spire did with its charter swapping, Front Row with its charter swapping. Man, if you own a charter, and they got rid of you can't be in the bottom 3 charters or eventually you'll lose it if you finish there too much. They got rid of that rule. You are guaranteed. NASCAR is guaranteed this by settling that lawsuit. I mean, you're making money running 25th, and Trackhouse is doing, is doing that now. But do you have the sponsors, right? That's the thing. You have equity, but do you have the money that's coming in for your operations? And that's going to be their big goal here. With Zilisch leaving, it opens the door for sponsors to look around too, including that Red Bull situation, whatever it is. Of course, they're also tied in with Ford. And you notice there was no NASCAR presence at the Ford event here. So, there was also the Ford event, the showcase in Atlanta a few weeks ago. All right, so let's pretend that the 88 car is going to remain on track, whether it's the 88 or not, and 2028. Corey Day got passed over for this. I think most people would agree he ain't ready. Even maybe by 2028, you can't put him ahead of Zilisch on the prospect chart. It opens the door for some interesting things. For one, I was talking with a coworker of mine who's a big race fan. Does Trackhouse, in a way, they got burned by another Chevrolet team taking their guy? Or was this the plan all along? We don't know. And Dan says yes. Yeah. And if so, do you not want to go look at Dodge? Or another manufacturer eventually. Like this Chevy hen house is full. We're not going to beat Hendrick. They're taking our drivers even. That's just another thought. I'm not saying I'm fully committed to that thought. I don't know. It's just weird to me.
But do they want to play? Because Colley's going to be the primary driver with Dodge. Are they going to want to be?
Not if Trackhouse shows up. Not if RFK. Not if RCR does it, man. If I'm Colley, I'd be, oh God, please let us be number 1, please. Like Bill Davis was with Toyota. Like, oops, let's go get Gibbs. Let Michael Waltrip's up. Here comes Gibbs right over him at Toyota. I didn't mean to talk over you. Just that Dodge will back the team that has the most firepower.
It'll be interesting to see, but somebody that could maybe fill in that 3rd role won't happen next year. But maybe Josh Berry takes a year off from Cup and then comes back, goes races at Trackhouse.
Yeah.
I think he's got a little bit more left in his Cup career, not a whole lot, based off the performance we've seen over the few years that he's been in the Cup Series. So maybe that's a guy to look out for in 2028.
Yeah. And you also have that Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen are free agents coming up. I still think that Trackhouse is their number one choice. But let's throw this in there. Austin Cindric, Jordan Bianchi, as he did a YouTube short, or not a YouTube, but like an 8-minute kind of discussion on how the Zilisch news hits Zilly season dominoes. Austin Cindric, kind of low-key, it hasn't been announced yet, but has signed a 1-year deal with the team that his dad has worked for forever, Penske. It's only a 1-year deal. Now, a lot of driver contracts have all sorts of contingencies that could be done after 1 year, but with Chastain and SVG and whoever else on the market, that's got to put a lot of pressure, I think, on young Cindric over there, and he's still young in that 2-car, despite the fact that he runs just well enough to stay at the Cup Series, right? I would think. So if you have a chance to get into that hen house, maybe that's why the Wood brothers signed Jesse Love, and he could be an incubator for the 2-car as well. And then in that case, I'm not sure if I'm Chastain or SVG that I want to go drive the 21. I don't think that's better than driving the equipment they're in. But what we don't know, we heard Daniel Suarez guys say behind the scenes at Trackhouse, he was, again, he didn't run well and he got replaced. But he was upset with how things were going behind the scenes and thought changes were being made over the last couple of years that just didn't put the team in the right direction. He goes to Spire and is thriving. But is he right about something? And we've seen how frustrated Chastain has been in the media. Again, they could still turn it around. It is only a bad couple of years, right? But it's 3 years in a row that they've underperformed, despite the road course wins from SVG. That'll open up other dominoes, too. You wonder, too, like, hey, if you have a chance to get Ross Chastain, is Brent Cruz your guy for the 11? All right? I mean, you could ask all these different questions, Hey, am I Spire and I have a chance to go get SVG? Is Daniel Suarez or Michael McDowell vulnerable? Maybe. I think Hocevar is untouchable right now. This could open up a lot of questions as a lot of drivers will be looking around. All right, now I want to pivot to something I didn't say we would discuss at the beginning of the show, and there's only so much we know. But when you read articles, particularly the team at The Athletic has done a good job. There are also a couple of really good finance guys that have done some really long X articles, basically, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but whatever, about the Walter Group. What is the Walter Group? TWG. This is the consortium owned by Mark Walter that is a large group of insurance and finance companies of names you've seen on race cars: Delaware Life, 1001 Group, Gainbridge. All right, and they are big in Spire. They co-own Spire. They own the Andretti Global IndyCar team. They own the Cadillac F1 team. They just sold the LA Lakers for a $2.5 billion profit 10 months after buying them. They own the LA Dodgers. And they own the Chelsea Football Club and a WNBA team and a French football club and some other things. All right? Well, there's news out that's starting to really catch fire about how basically these things are being financed by the people that are buying annuities. Here goes the job I had right after WSB. By annuities and buying all this life insurance, and these smaller companies that are all owned by the same company are loaning the bigger company to go and do all of these sports ventures. And it hasn't necessarily, the accusation is, it hasn't necessarily been transparent. Another thing that I read in some reporting is that Dan Tauris, that's a name you hear a lot in this, more than Mark Walter. He's kind of the shadow billionaire. Dan Tauris, who is the owner of, or not owner, he's the person that runs all of the motorsports division in several of these big insurance companies. These companies are kind of lending themselves money, allegedly, and he's kind of at the top of that food chain. All right, I'm trying not to bore you guys, but here's the deal. When I read articles about this, they list, I read one today, written by, co-authored by Alex Andreev, who is a former NASCAR reporter for the Charlotte Observer. The NASCAR team, Spire Motorsports, wasn't even mentioned in all of the things that they own. So it's pretty far down the list, but I'm wondering, Dan, the thing that I think has helped Spire get off the ground has been the influx of money. And if they have to tighten the faucet a little bit to be legit, so to speak, maybe they are legit, but to appear more legit, How does that affect the team downstream, Dan, do you think? And I know we don't know a lot, but you know how it is with the race team. It doesn't take much for the water to taste bad.
No, it doesn't. And the thing about it is by the time you wrap your head around this, the fact is that they already know their plan. They already know that this to a lot of these people it's serious money to us. It's our hard-earned money, but to a lot of these organizations, to these companies, this play money. And you can go play with this stuff, and you can gamble that it's going to make money, not make money, because as someone told me a couple of weeks ago, if you've either got money in the stock market, or depending on where you're at with the CDs right now, which aren't bringing as much as stock market's bringing. So most everybody's money's in the stock market, and it's bringing good returns. So if you're a big investment group, let's say that more than half of your investments are making big money, and your other ones might be on a tier of pretty good money on down, you can afford to invest some money that there's not going to be any return, because you got to have write-offs.
Oh, yeah, the write-offs are big. And one thing that's come out in all of this, so the Lakers got sold. $2.5 billion profit. They got sold to
money.
Jared Kushner's younger brother. You know who that is, the son-in-law of Donald Trump. Jared Kushner's younger brother, Joshua Kushner, who's with a venture capital situation, and Bob Iger, the former CEO of Disney. What? There's some names, all right. And so the Taurus deal pocketed $2.5 billion off of that to go wherever and however, maybe to help liquidate and settle some of these holes. Let's just say. I also read that essentially the Dodgers, despite being super successful in so many ways, are actually either breaking even or losing money because they own multiple companies within themselves, and there's, well, we're losing here, so we'll stuff some over here and circle it around, do-si-do, pull it around. Like, it's fascinating, and it also is terrifying at the same time. And by the way, these are all alleged, right? They're being investigated for. No one said they did it. No one's guilty. No one's gone to trial or been arrested or anything like that. But again, it's everything. Even the most rock solid things are a house of cards, and all it takes is for the money faucet to turn off. And when does that affect things downstream? All right. Despite the fact that Spire Motorsports, as much as we think they are uprising and big and millions of dollars worth of NASCAR, they ain't but a small ornament on the TWG tree. Devin, I mean, we're all kind of just learning this stuff from other people's reporting. You and I don't report on finance, neither does Dan. What are your thoughts as you've read more and more about this or seen it?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see if this gets down to Spire Motorsports, because obviously on the food chain of this whole thing, where does obviously Spire's probably below the Cadillac F1 team.
Way
you
below.
would just hope if you're Spire Motorsports, though, that it doesn't get to you, because right now, their performance is really good, and then what's going to happen when that money gets pulled back?
Yeah.
It's a whole different world.
Let's talk about an example for when Dan and the Elliott family were just hauling that truck up to the track. J.D. Stacy put his big fat name on the back of all these cars. Oh, man, J.D. Stacy. And they did have some success. What's that?
5 cars.
5 cars. Basically viewed as an all the money in the world kind of guy, but very volatile. Now, Mark Walter's different. He's a background guy. And even Dan Tower, they're not like, Mark Cuban, or I'm making fun of Mark Cuban. They're not like an owner that's just out. Yeah, here I am. Or even Justin Marks, who's always available, always talking. They're background guys. But, man, J.D. Stacy, that's why Earnhardt left and went to Childress the first time, right? Warner Hodgkin was kind of similar, Dan. He joined Junior Johnson's operation and joined other teams over the years. And I don't know that it was ever peak successful. I don't know that it ever lived its potential. Did you? I know he owned
Wood
Neil
Brothers.
Bonnett's team when he drove the 12.
Wood Brothers, they were very successful with the Wood Brothers.
Wait, so Hodgkin bought into the Wood Brothers too?
Warner Hodgson brought into the Wood Brothers, yeah.
I didn't know that. I know he did with Johnson, for sure, Junior Johnson, the 11 and 12 cars. And I can't, I think there was another team at some point. I remember seeing Hodgkin.
Bought in with sponsorship.
Yeah, I got you.
In that arena, which all of it was, because it's just like these companies, and nobody says anything about this, is you have investors. You have groups that bring in massive amounts of money, but the bottom line is they have no say in the company.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
The company
correct.
still
And especially,
runs. It's the company is run by Rick Hendrick, Jeff Gordon, all the other powers to be. You're not going to go in there and just because you've got money, think you're going to go in there and spend money and have any say in what goes on in the operation. You're not.
yeah. Although it does seem like, again, if there's a reason to doubt yourself at Spire, just you don't want any crack. When you have a good thing going, you don't want any crack that people could leak out, so to speak, or, that
Well,
suddenly you can't go buy
any business,
all the parts.
Any business is run that way, and
Yeah.
that's the way it is because you can't afford for how you got successful. You don't want other people coming in and thinking they can run a better business than you've built, and it's been your blood, sweat, and tears that built it, and you don't want anybody else to come in and tell you how to run your business based on the fact that
Yeah.
you've been successful in how you run it, even though you don't have the capital to keep going in a manner because none of us can control inflation.
Correct. Some other examples of the years. Remember when Bobby Ginn made a big splash, 2006.
Yep.
And he basically bought MB2 Motorsports, renamed it Ginn Racing. I'm a truck team. Oh, the O'Reilly Series team. We're going to go out and try to get Dale Jr. Oh, we're going to go out and try to get Kyle Busch. We're buying a 7-post shaker rig. All this stuff. They merged with DEI midway through 2007, and he was gone. George Gillette bought into Evernham, then became the controlling partner at Evernham. Basically, he took over. There were a lot of unpaid bills there. In fact, going back to the Zilisch thing being signed a year and a half ahead of time, basically, Casey Kane signed with Hendrick Motorsports in 2010 to drive there in 2012, and eventually got fired from the 9 car and had to go run at Red Bull and then run a throwaway season at Red Bull because of all the instability there at Gillette Evernham Motorsports. All right. And we've seen it on smaller levels too, just where somebody comes in with a bunch of money. I got this. And it is hard to do. So, with that said, Spire, which started as a scrappy little deal, has built into a small empire with a lot more stability than it ever had. I hope for the sake of NASCAR and the people working there and the fans that it lasts. Okay. And when I say working there, I mean all the teams, the people, in there. All right. So that's, I just something I want to throw out because I feel like we can't not talk about it at some point. And maybe I picked the wrong week to do it because we had so much other stuff. Corey Heim found out he's not going to be able to run Rookie of the Year next year. NASCAR decided there's a 12-race rule now, and he's going to have done that already by the start of next season. Quick thoughts, anybody? Do you care? Do you not? Is it stupid?
I think it's interesting that it feels like NASCAR changes the rule on this. It feels like, and there's not a clear line, and then all of a sudden, nope, he's not eligible anymore. So
I like the regular season champion, by the way, Denny. Oh, what? Maybe NASCAR's getting its little jabs in.
He actually hasn't clinched that 1 seed yet, but he's probably will though.
Right. But he's been there ever since he passed Reddick. So, Dan, does that, it's changed so many times. It used to get voted on. Ryan Newman beat Jimmy Johnson, in 2002. Like, what? Really? There have been a lot of times where only one person has run for Rookie of the Year, like Connor Zilisch this year. All right. So, any feelings on it, Dan?
No, because I feel like we've delved into the politics of this probably deeper than we really needed to. But it is part of the politics, and the thing about it is we, like the other teams, are so far down the food chain that you don't even have an idea of what's going on and how quickly in the next 2 years that all of this stuff is going to change and take form, and you'll be able to see part of it play out, but you will sit back and say, well, I didn't even see that coming. And everybody, that's how far ahead this group is, because the power players will always be power players, and they will always resist anyone on a level they feel under them from growing up the chain. That's the way you eliminate the competition.
Yeah. And look, I think that's why it's so surprising. Maybe there was so much of, even though it's Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, so much of an underdog feel that the teams actually forced NASCAR to settle. Basically, they forced their hand.
I mean, it's told to me in my career here is, don't take it personal. It's just business.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. And that's just we've all dealt with that in our careers. And Devin, good luck. You will too. So hopefully it's not anywhere you're working now. All right. Hey, look, let's look ahead real quick. Also, 2027 schedule news. It keeps coming out drips and drabs. The big piece isn't official yet, but Chicagoland Speedway appears to be returning. Jordan Bianchi, the Athletic, reporting. I always wanted a tribute, and a lot of times it's him. He's a dang good reporter. Has a lot of conversations, backs it up. So the Chicago Street Course is not dead, but it's just on ice until they can figure out what they need to figure out, including show me the money. Respond right here. And then Homestead will return as the season-ending race next year. They're also going to have improvements updated into the track, much like Iowa's going to have improvements, including a repave. Homestead's going to have some facility improvements, which I've heard need to be done. I haven't never been there, so I don't know that personally. And I just saw during the show, Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or MoSport, will host the Truck Series again, the Craftsman Truck Series next season. So we're starting to figure these things out. Is there anything real quick? We talked about schedule a little bit. Is there anything real quick, guys, that you're like, yeah, is there anything that just jumps off to you?
Not really. Just the fact that Nashville hasn't announced its race date yet, but that's about it.
Yeah. Hey, Nashville Super Speedway was at the Rome Emperors game Friday before last, handing out stuff. Echo Park Speedway sent them some totes to hand out. They didn't have anybody available, but Nashville was out there promoting, and they had Chandler Smith out at a Chattanooga minor league team baseball game, and Chandler Smith was there again for the Rome Emperors. So props to Nashville Super Speedway.
Maybe
11 months ahead of their race promoting it, man. Respond right here.
Maybe because Echo Park Speedway with the Atlanta traffic is actually further away from Rome than Nashville Super Speedway is.
What sucks is that's a serious conversation to be had. What sucks is that is actually maybe not true, but close. Wow. Okay.
They're probably about even if you put the traffic factor in. Because Nashville Super Speedway is east of Nashville.
Bottoms up. Wow. Wow. Whoa. Well, that's not going to dry fast. Okay. All right. So nothing bigger breaking on the schedule. Last year's New Hampshire Cup race. Let's look ahead to this weekend here. It's going to be Performance Racing Network, USA Sports, who I think has done a mixed job with a lot of the. We're going to get into USA stuff later. We haven't gotten to talk about him yet, really. But Lee Diffie, man, bro, Lee Diffie in my veins. All right, simple as that. The Dollar Tree 301. Hello. Because it's $1, right? That's going to be Sunday at 3 p.m., so kind of a normal start time. The Truck Series will be 1:30 Saturday afternoon. I like getting that done in the afternoon there. Cup practice and qualifying will be Saturday 10:30 to 12:30 on True TV. Remember, it's not on Prime. It's on True TV like it was really for the last several races dating back to when they were on TNT. And the O'Reilly Series will not be on track again until Friday night, August 28th at Daytona for their series finale, or rather regular season finale. Last 4 Cup races, the Gen 7 car area at New Hampshire. I was at the first one of those, 2022, and Christopher Bell won. Kyle Larson, though, has the most points, boys, in that short stretch of races there, but he's not won in the Gen 7 car in New Hampshire. Martin Truex Jr., despite missing a race, second most, shows how good he is there. Christopher Bell third, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Chase Briscoe, and Tyler Reddick, your top 10. And again, in a small sample size, and it's not all about points, but again, all of these races had stage points in this era. Last year's race, won by Ryan Blaney in a big-time duel with Josh Berry, who's been on a bit of a heater lately for his standards, and Joey Logano also dominated the first half of that race, so anything could change, but Penske Ford's, why not put more pressure on everybody else there to look forward to this weekend? But you saw there aren't any surprises, Dan Elliott, and again, your promo that runs on PRN all the time, and on Brandon Reed's Print the Legend podcast, by the way, your promo. You say you can look at the stats all you want, then you just got to watch a race. But I look at these top 10. There ain't one surprise here. There isn't one even RFK car. There isn't a Ryan Preece in it, right? It is heavy hitters from the big 4 teams, basically, including Truex, who's been retired for a year.
Yep. Cream always rises to the top. So you can look at that. But I'm just so looking forward to Daytona because nobody can predict Daytona. You can say that you're pretty well assured that it's going to be one of the hard hitters. Well, you don't know that for sure until the flag falls.
Correct. I heard this stat too. Russell, and I don't know his last name, from Racing Insights, was on guess which podcast. I've only said it 18 times today. The Dale Jr. Download. late in the show, he talked about the last time that a Chevrolet won at New Hampshire, and it was Kevin Harvick in 2016. Isn't that
Wow.
crazy?
Hey,
It has
like
gone
I said,
Toyota,
the pendulum
Ford,
swings both
Ford.
ways.
Yeah. So it's been a mixture about even with Toyotas and Fords since then. But the last Chevy to win and the last Hendrick driver to win, I mentioned him earlier very briefly, his first year driving for Hendrick, 2012, Casey Kanye. Is that how you pronounce it? Kanye?
Kanye West?
Yeah, Casey Kanye. Is that how? With the H? Is the H?
I don't know.
Kane. That's it. Dang it. I forgot. It's been gone a long time. Okay. All right. So, look, that's our look at New Hampshire there. Boys, any other final thoughts about New Hampshire, how it races, what you're looking forward to?
Maybe
Get
we
softer
gotta look
tire.
out for- Ever since Christopher Bell joined JGR's, only had one finish outside the top 10 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
And 2 of them were in victory lane. I love the Eric Almirola race, 2021, where they wrecked at turn 1 when the rain happened. They raced in the rain. It was a wild event. Actually, they raced in the rain another time. I think it was 2023 or 20. It was 2024, I think, when Bell won.
22,
20.
maybe.
He won in 22, but that was a sunny day. I was there filling in for Pat Patterson, turn 4. No, Bell won in 2024 when they raced in the rain also. And Kyle Busch wrecked under caution. Rest in peace. Yesterday, by the way, as many that are following this know, was August 18th or 8/18. And I know the numbers are backwards on the Top Speed graphics, Youngblood family graphics they made up for Kyle Busch. But he's going to run a Bristol throwback. Rather, Ty Gibbs is going to run in the 54 a throwback M&M's paint scheme. And there are going to be some other tributes there for Kyle Busch. I've enjoyed the little bit I've seen, guys, of remembering that guy on social media. And I want to tell you, this will be my final thought, okay? And then we can go to you. I see those videos. Like, I saw a video, Richard Childress Racing had bloopers from Kyle Busch, like social media content. And I hadn't really watched images of Kyle Busch a whole lot since he died. Like, that first week or two, there was a ton of tributes. But, then you're just like, okay, we're going racing. And, then you think of the cars. And I'm seeing this animated, I'm sorry to be weird, but I see this animated human being who is my age, who just died. Like, didn't get killed in a car crash, like, just died. It was like haunting to me. And I'm sorry, if anybody's weird, that makes you depressed, turn it off, you mute me or whatever. But I just like, dadgum, like, it's still, I don't know, it hadn't sunk into me yet that he's not there, not driving the car. So I'm not trying to make y'all sad, but that's my final thought, is just all the love to the Busch family, Samantha Brexton, Lennox, Kurt, the parents, everyone. So I don't know. Devin, you got anything, man?
Yeah, to wrap up that Connor Zilisch press conference yesterday. Indy 500 doubleheader. He was asked about that. Rick Hendrick was not too fond on doing another one. He said it would take him a lot of convincing for him to do another doubleheader, given what happened with Kyle Larson for those 2 years in 24 and 25 when he did it. So doesn't seem likely that will happen again. But that's just one little other tidbit from that press conference I picked up on.
But you got to wonder if Zilisch really wants to do it. He's only 20 years old. Hopefully they allow him to at least pursue, with a fellow
one
Chevy
last
team.
thing, too, running another series, different racing series, only if it helps Zilisch that they will allow him to do that stuff.
I agree. And I think if he does well at Cup, it's not going to be a problem. And for those saying, well, Kyle Larson isn't doing well at Cup. Dude, he won the championship last year. Dude, he's top 10 in points. He just hasn't won a race. Like, calm down. All right, he's running better than your favorite driver, probably. Okay, so calm down. Anyway, great tidbits. Devin, thank you for logging in and listening to that. I'm glad that 5 to Go has the imprint it does. Be sure to get on our Facebook page there and see all the great videos, 96% of which Devin shot and have done really well. Dan, I talked over you a lot today. I'm sorry, man. Give me a good final thought, brother.
No, A-OK. I think my final thought is read into what you were told in a lot of the interviews, a lot of the things that went on, because you can read between the lines in some of this stuff, because comes down to one thing that I've learned about this is most race off of OPM, other people's money. So given the fact that they aren't too excited about the double at Indy, doesn't concern me in the least, because my thoughts on that are if somebody comes up with the money to do that, no problem. It won't be
Yeah.
my money, but if somebody comes up with the money to do that, then no problem.
Hey, I
So
love that.
it's just another way of saying, don't write this off, because if you want to sponsor this deal, then we'll do it.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Dale Jr., when having a discussion on his show about all the expiring contracts at Trackhouse, and is that a big deal? Dale Jr. said, no, man, I am solely as a team owner worried about will we be paid for next year. The drivers, I can sign drivers. He goes, will I have partners? Because for every partner you talk to, 95% or 90% don't say yes.
In 2 years' time, take a look at this circle that we're talking about today and see how much of it is filled in.
Yeah, great point. Great point. We'll see what with this big gap
No problem,
opening.
and as they say in Australia, no worries, mate.
No worries, Mike. There you go. That's SVG's not native country, by the way, Devin. Just to throw that
I know
out there.
that.
Thank you.
Respond right here, man. SVG.
Okay,
Well,
so
by the way,
Australia or New Zealand, but I was referencing Australia, not SVG.
I know. I just like to throw in that Devin said he was from Australia to his face one time, and that's pretty fun. So, that's we're never. I mean, he brings it up more than I do. Hey, look, we love that y'all have been tuning in. And thank you for putting up with our conjecture today. I hope you got something out of it, or at least got the creative juices flowing. We'd love to hear what you think happens to the 88 car and to some of the drivers that could be moving around. Put in the comments box, send us a carrier pigeon, all the different ways. Share the show. If you like the clips you see, share those, please. We definitely helps us out to get the word out so we can keep growing the show. So for Devin and Dan, I'm Doug. PRN carries New Hampshire racing this weekend, and we will talk to you very soon on the 5 to Go podcast here on GoPRN.com, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. God bless.